Welcome to the Stress Detox podcast. I'm your host, Edie Goditis. I support female leaders with stress management and embodiment coaching, yoga, breathwork, and meditation programming, classes, workshops, and retreats. I also facilitate stress management workshops for organizations and teams. I am a best-selling author and now the host of this awesome podcast. And today we are talking about stress and how it is related with weight loss, weight gain, body image, self-worth, and self-confidence with the amazing weight loss coach and dietitian, Leah Van Dolder. And Leah is a registered dietitian with over 15 years of experience specializing in women's weight loss, wellness, and habit change. She's passionate about empowering you to elevate your health, nutrition, and mindset so you can feel confident in your skin, connected with your body, and have the energy to do more of the things that make you feel most alive. Leah is known for her no BS practical approach to living a healthy and balanced lifestyle. Her thing is helping you get out of your own way so you can take consistent action and be the healthiest, most vibrant, and powerful version of you. So thank you, Leah.
Thank
Woohoo!
you. Woo! Good to be here. Super excited to be here, Edie. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So we'll dive right in.
Let's
What,
do it.
what is your relationship with stress?
Oh man, that was such a good question. And it was funny when I got that email. I I had to do some reflection on it because I was like, I rarely hear myself say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so stressed." Like I actually I don't think I have ever heard those words come out of my own mouth.
I love that.
And I was like, but why is that?
Right.
So, because that really it's a probing question for me because I'm like, that helps me understand my own relationship with stress. The fact that I have never heard myself say, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. That's a testament in terms of how I choose to respond to the quote unquote stressors that do pop up in my life and how I've learned how to navigate through them so that I'm not feeling the negative effects of stress on my body. So yeah, I thought that was a an interesting little twist. I was like, holy shit, like I don't think I've actually like interesting. This will be a really good way to start off this conversation. Be like, hey, Edie, like I actually don't feel stress in my life, and like all the listeners are gonna be like, damn you, Leah, like why are you even talking about this?
What?
But yeah, that's like my first answer. There is like I thought it was really interesting that was the first thought that came to mind. So my relationship with stress, and you know, digging a little bit deeper into that, I find that, and honestly, recognizing that things pop up in life, like circumstances, shifts, responsibilities, all that. I think that's what's been really helpful for me is recognizing like stress is never not going to be there.
Right. Yeah.
Stress is not something that is just, going to settle down. I think what has been really helpful for me is making a conscious decision around, okay, well, how am I going to respond to this? Like, oh, hey, the furnace broke and it's like the coldest day of the year. Okay, cool. How am I going to respond to that? Oh, I quote unquote failed my first launch there with my program, or like I didn't sell anything in my first launch. Like, okay, yeah, like it was a stressor, but how am I going to manage that? Like, how am I going to
Yeah.
talk myself through that? Um, like injuring myself. Okay, that happened. I find that a lot of the mindset mentors that I've worked with over the years have helped a lot with getting real about or how much power and how much control I have over my stress response, and just knowing how to talk myself through it. Because I think that just chatting it out and just that, what was the word I'm looking for? Almost like that reassurance, like that positive self-talk, the reassurance, because oh my gosh, like that internal chatter can get so noisy, and that alone I find can be very stressful. So this is a really big thing that I do with my clients, and the work that I do is helping them really become aware of their internal chatter, because the stuff I
Yeah.
hear all the time, they're like, oh man, I'm so stressed and I have this and that to do. I'm like, okay, let's actually have a brain dump here. What's all that internal chatter going on in your mind? Because I find that alone can be really stressful. It's like, oh, I don't have time for this, or I don't do this, and I have this and this and this. And so I find that just that self-talk of like, Leah, it's like these things are like you're capable of navigating through these things. You have resources, you can reach out to people, you don't have to have all the answers. You can get through this, it's just like that positive. It's like, girl, you got this. You freaking got this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And I love that you just shared all of that. It's so true. Whenever I think of you as being one of the most chill people I know, quite
Really?
honestly. Oh yeah. I'm always just like, oh yeah, Leah's just like, okay, cool. Yep, we're good.
Oh,
It's
that's
amazing.
good.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it is so true. Like the self-talk is an integral part. And that's something that I often reflect back with my clients as well, is like life is life,
Yeah.
and we're all navigating it regardless of the curveballs that are happening. And so it's really, how do we really ground into ourselves to navigate it and respond versus just like react in such an unconscious way that
Yeah.
feeds so many of the deeper patterns that keep us feeling the disconnection and lack of self-worth or frustration that might be playing out in our own life. So I
Yeah.
love that you just shared all of that because it's paramount to
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Yeah, thank you. And what I liked about that was the pause. It's it would that pause has really helped me respond versus react to things. And when, a quote unquote stressful situation comes up, like whatever it is, maybe like a heated discussion with my partner, or, say I've been like having a really rough, like, month in business, or say rental properties or like tenants are just like clashing or whatever. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to make any decisions right now. And I'm in this like heated, emotionally charged headspace. I'm going to give myself permission to just like chill the F out for a little bit, go do something that allows you to disperse this energy out of your body. Like go for a big walk, do Pilates, go do some deep breathing, go listen to a podcast that allows you to like tap into and just like chill the F out for a bit so that you can make I don't want to say non-emotional, but a more like rational and logical
Yeah.
response to something.
Yeah. The consciously informed decision.
Yeah, a consciously
Yeah.
informed decision, because that to me, that feels really good. I find that when I make more emotionally charged, heated decisions or say something in the moment when I am like fired right up, I'm just like, it's like, I wish I could have handled that differently if I allowed myself some pause, that
Yeah.
conscious space.
Yeah. That's what I love about mindfulness. It literally means the pause between the stimulus and the response.
Mm-hmm.
Mindfulness is like the breath. So it sounds like you live super mindfully, which is
Do.
amazing.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really transformative in my life in all areas.
Yeah.
Nutrition, fitness, business, relationships, everything.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to learn more. How did you become, like, what led you to become a dietitian and a weight loss coach specifically?
I remember from a really young age that I loved helping people, and I really was drawn to the health and wellness world. I think for me, I grew up with a gift of having parents and, a mom that had the ability to stay at home and raise four of us. I have three younger brothers, but my mom was a really strong and healthy and very mindful role model for me.
Mhm.
And I really do see that as a gift. And I think that's what also pulled me towards that field of health and wellness, because I just saw like what a huge impact that has on the quality of your life. When you take care of yourself and you eat nourishing foods and you move your body and you are intentional about what you're doing, and also the language that you use around food instead of, because when I grew up, Edie, like I never heard my mom say anything about like body shape or size. We didn't talk about numbers or, clothing. Like we didn't talk about that. Like the language was around like fueling foods. It was like food groups. You enjoy ice cream and chips, once in a while. This is, food for the soul, but it was never in association with eat less to look better or to like lose weight or anything like that. It was much more from that abundance and the fueling, and not just fueling of your body, but of your mind and everything. And I realized real fast when I got into because my first job was in a weight loss clinic. And
Okay.
I knew, I was like, man, like that childhood, that upbringing, what a gift that was. What a
Mhm.
gift. So I was drawn to that. And in terms of the mindset, what I found was so interesting too, within all of my training and within the teams that I worked with, like I was never in other teams with dietitians. I was always placed in teams with brain change experts. So I was always in teams with like psychologists and psychiatrists and psychotherapists. And I was always just so curious about like what's happening in our brain if people know what to do, but don't do it. Like, what's the gap there? Because I hear all the time, and I work with smart, educated women, right? And they're like, I know my nutrition stuff. Like, I know I need to be eating more fruits and vegetables, and I know I need to be doing this, but I'm having a hard time doing it. So I'm like, okay, what's the block? What's the gap? What's going on in that beautiful brain of yours? What are you actually scared of? How are you talking yourself out of it? What, maybe unexpected trauma is there? What kind of emotions are tied with food and your body and you making transformation within your life that is uncomfortable? And what's going on in your mind around like success and failure and like expectations of yourself and everything? So I loved it. I was like, hey, like here's all the good stuff here. So I thought that was a really interesting and like really complementary addition
Yeah.
to the nutrition and the psychology. And I've just seen the power too. I invest within my own business coaches and mindset coaches, and like it's just next level. You get out of your own way when you know your own tendencies and like have the courage, because it is uncomfortable to really look at yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, like how am I actually like shooting myself in the foot here? What
Totally.
things might be what like past traumas, and it doesn't have to be these big traumas, but like what are these like little traumas or experiences, what life experiences, like what stories am I tied to that are holding me back from really stepping into this, next level or next version of me or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So that's a, I know I just said a lot there, but nutrition and
I
mindset. There
love
you go.
it. I love it. Well, it goes so hand in hand. Like,
Yeah.
even the work I do with clients, I have clients come in, and then before you know it, we're talking about nutrition and we're talking about body image. Like, it's all so intricately linked. You can't
Yeah.
have a holistic approach without looking at mind, without looking at body, without looking at like spirit. Like you can't. We
Yeah.
don't exist as separate things. So it is all so interrelated, and recognizing like you shared like the fact that you had such a beautiful upbringing in terms of body image support and celebration of foods and like
Mhm.
education versus shame around
Yeah.
it is phenomenal because like my parents were both incredibly active too, and my mom was super fit and very health conscious, and her mom was basically anorexic and had severe body image issues and body dysmorphia, which then was passed on to my mom. And I grew up dancing and I started dieting at age 13 and was told bread was bad for me and it made my butt look big.
Yeah.
Like the level of restriction and then like mental corruption, it's wild, and at
Mm.
such like young ages. And then
Yeah.
these are our role models, and then it's like we're surrounded in those environments, so it's so beautiful that you had such a different experience and that so much positivity and empowering um just like support in your own life is what led you to this work, because my journey has been very different to get to this work, and it's been a much more intense like self-acceptance and yeah, empowerment experience for me first to
Mm.
then step into. So,
I love that you said that because what just came to mind is like even though like we're in similar journey or similar destinations, but the journeys are so different. And I think like I'm just going to open up and be vulnerable here, but there was absolutely a point, the story that I was almost attached to, not attached to, but one that was playing was like I've had such a healthy, stable, upbringing and like, such a beautiful relationship with food and body. Like, what makes me worthy of talking about this stuff with women? Because and like, just
mm,
again, it's just like such a great example of like how our mind can literally stop us from doing something. So that was something within me. Like, we talk about worthiness and acceptance and all of that. Like mine that I really had to work through is like, just because I didn't grow up with this, like, we'll call it a dysfunctional, like, relationship around
relationship.
food and fitness and
Yeah.
all of that, doesn't mean that I can't help other women.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I think it's amazing that you have, no, I think it's amazing that you have such a grounded experience to then help people from that space, because
mm,
what you've had the opportunity to experience is what everyone else, I'll say, and that might be broad brush, is striving for.
mm,
So, what a gift it is that you're sharing from that place, because you're literally embodying what the transformation is that people seek. So, of course, then you're going to share what lights you up and your perspective, because it's helping show people that it's possible, and it's helping remind us that, like, maybe we're not meant to live in the level of restriction or dysfunction that so many of us have been exposed to. And it hasn't even been probably on purpose in many
mm,
cases. It's just so much of the societal conditioning on top of it that people are trying to um like survive under, or even just like the like social expectations that they're trying to meet to fit in. So I think
mm,
it's beautiful that you have your story and are sharing from that space.
thank you.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
I'm really,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really happy that I made the decision to lean into this and, yeah, just be where I am here today. All those
Yeah.
conscious decisions, Edie, I tell ya.
I know. It's
Yeah.
wild. It's wild when we get real with ourselves, like what we're able to create and step into when
Yeah.
we start to really like reflect on so many of the stories versus the facts, and then what we can actually let go of that we've outgrown, even though it feels safe,
Yeah.
to then like open to these new thoughts and possibilities. Like it's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I'll roll into our next question,
Okay.
which is more like a massive paragraph, but I'm just going to go
Oh,
with it.
yeah.
So, for women especially, physical weight loss can be greatly impacted by stress, especially in relation to body image, self-worth, and self-acceptance. As women, the two of us, I feel so commonly that we attach our worth and definitions of beauty and success to our appearance. At least I know that was my journey, especially, and it created insane amounts of stress, pressure, and
Mhm.
imbalance in all areas of my life. So I'd love if you can speak more to these areas in terms of patterns or trends that you've seen with supporting clients in your business.
Mhm. Yeah, big, big topic.
I know. As much as you'd like to answer, this can be multiple
Yeah.
episodes if needed.
Well, I think kind of, piggybacking on what we were just chatting about is really unpacking your own belief system around beauty and around, you know, worthiness and, those attachments that we may hold around, say, like beauty equals thin, fit, you know, looks like Heidi Klum, whatever. Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Where's that coming from? So impacting that. And what I think is really cool too, because I was at a workshop once and the woman there, she was talking about beauty. And I mean, like every woman wants to feel beautiful, right? And this woman that was running the workshop, she's like, okay, so she had the participants partner up, buddy up, and you're looking at each other like face to
Yeah.
face, maybe like a couple feet apart. But she asked each of us to say, like, the beauty in me sees the beauty in you. And then we started to list off like all the things. And what I found so powerful about that was not once did somebody mention somebody's appearance.
Interesting. I love
Not
that.
once. So,
Yeah.
and I think too, like we just like real talk, like we live in this society where like, we're just like bombarded with images and all this stuff. But it's like, but going beyond that, like going beyond just like the face of somebody, like what makes somebody beautiful? Because everybody is so unique and like has their own gifts and flair. Like there's no two same people here. So
Yeah.
I think it's really a powerful exercise to, do it with, a friend. Even a stranger is great too, because you're like, I've been in this workshop for 2 hours. Like, how do you know? Like, how do you see this beauty in me? But it can be really validating. And I think that's what so many women are craving. It's like, because at the end of the day, all you want to do is feel seen, feel understood, and just feel validated. And again, if our internal chatter, like, if we hear our mom's voice or like, I don't know, somebody else's voice saying like, oh, well, that doesn't look good. Look at your ass in those jeans, or, look at your arms. Oh, you'll never get that job. Like, compared to so and so or whatever it is. It's like, whose voice is that?
Hmm.
Is that your voice? Is that your highest self voice, or is that somebody else's voice? Because I think the most amazing thing that I learned about our thoughts is that we are the thinker of our thoughts, and we get to choose what thoughts that we subscribe to and which ones that we unsubscribe to. So rewriting that relationship with yourself and deciding what beautiful means to you, like that's the fun that you get to have. The playfulness within that is deciding what beautiful means to you, because everybody's version of beauty looks different.
And what does beauty mean to you?
Oh my
To
gosh.
put you on the spot.
Oh man, like I just get emotional thinking about it, but like beauty to me is just like, when you see a woman, you're like, hot damn, like she knows who she is. There's just like this like energy around her. You're like, I want to get to know that person.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
confidence. She's just like doesn't give a shit about what other people think. She's just like just shows up as herself and is unapologetically herself. And like has a really like big heart. And yeah, she just like pulls out the best in people. Like to me, that's what beauty means. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I often ask clients that question because it's so common that we're just living life reacting to some other definition of beauty and of success, and especially with regards to physical appearance
Mm.
or like money in the bank account. And it's
Yes.
so interesting to notice how worth is immediately tied to everything
Yeah.
outside of us.
Yeah.
And so taking the time for introspection, to be really curious, and then to offer grace as we rewrite the narratives is so amazing. Like something I love to remind clients is like our thoughts can sound so real, but
Mm.
most of the time they're not true. So
Yeah.
then, like you said, it's like, what are you choosing to believe? And so often I'll catch myself when I look in the mirror, if my brain starts going really negative, I'm like, hey, girlfriend, love you.
Mm.
This is not true.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, what's a truthful thing right now? And I know for me, like just even a few years ago when I was working with my therapist pretty closely in 2018 through 2020, like she had me do a lot of mirror work to really,
Mm.
oh yeah, to just practice self-acceptance, because in 2018, like I had very different opinions of myself. So
Yeah.
it it's fascinating. It's just so fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Oh, you're so welcome. I think that, success, like we get so tied up and like it's even in our culture, right? Like in North
Oh yeah,
American culture, like success is so often tied to numbers. So like whether it's your weight or your pant size or how much money you make or how many credentials you have beside your name, like at the end of the day, it's like that doesn't make you who you are. Like it's a part, like it's just it doesn't even
yeah,
matter. Like
yeah,
I was totally caught up in that. And that's something that I really had to work on too, like even my self-worth and like pulling out the like just going back to numbers around, money in the bank account, money that I'm pulling in for my business and equating that to self-worth. So like really like untangling that too. And that is, oh man, like it's uncomfortable, but oh my gosh, like it's so amazing because that to me, and like this is where I've had, you know, feeling more confident in my skin. It hasn't come from the fact that it's like, okay, yeah, I've lost 25 pounds since my university days, but I think the biggest thing that I've learned and like the biggest awakening is recognizing like my self-confidence has come from detangling myself from the thought that my worth had to do with my appearance and the amount of money that I made and how many accomplishments I, do or get done. So that was a big, like, unexpected breakthrough within the last, like, honestly, like, even the last few months. Like, it's ever evolving, but that's been a big one, like, big, big one.
100%. I think that's something that we all as humans experience, especially as we do more of the work around just learning about
Mm.
ourselves. Because until we're conscious of all of those self-worth beliefs and like very distorted narratives, we just are living on autopilot. So it's
Totally.
amazing to actually get real with ourselves and then, yeah, start to uncouple and detangle all of it and then recognize, okay, so how do I define my self worth?
Yeah.
And like, what really is confidence to me? And like, confidence and
Yes.
bravery are like built. And it's really, I love one of the things that like a fitness instructor said to me recently is it's like confidence comes from the action. It's the
Mm.
continuous consistent action. And I know you've said that as well, and it's so true. So it's beautiful to recognize, like you said, it's like at the end of the day, none of the accolades, the money, the size, the appearance, doesn't matter. When we've like transitioned on, people remember whatever Maya Angelou's quote is of like, they don't remember all that stuff. It's like how you made them feel.
Yeah, they
And
don't
it's like
remember what
who
you
you
said.
are. Yeah,
Yeah,
they don't remember what you said. It's how you made them
you made them
feel. And
feel.
so it's that like heart-centered living. And yeah, I just think so important to talk about. It's so important to talk about.
There is.
So
Yeah, it sure
yeah.
is. And I think it's so good to talk about because, with nutrition and like so many women come to me, they're like, okay, like I need to dial in my nutrition. Like I want to lose weight. I want to feel great. I want to boost my self-confidence and all that. And it's almost like this lovely little Houdini trick. Like, we start working together and then it's like, oh yeah, okay, we're going into some deeper stuff here, versus just, what to eat and, actually taking the time to nourish yourself. But it's a much deeper, and
Yeah.
more fulfilling journey. Yeah.
Well, because mindset is the foundation to everything.
Hmm.
So even if we're eating super healthy, if our mindset is super, super toxic,
Yeah.
then we can be eating super healthy and be super fit, but still hate ourselves, not feel confident, and still like that was my experience a
Yeah.
few years ago. Like I was considered to be in the best shape, but then I looked at how I was psychologically and I was like,
Yeah.
wow. And I
Yeah.
remember, and I remember
Wow.
like chatting with a therapist too. And she was like, okay, so what was your ideal body weight? And I like told her from a few years ago, and she was like, and how was your mental health? And I was like, oh, terrible. And she's like, but you're saying that's still your ideal. And I was like, I guess not. You're
Mm,
right. She's like, no, the ideal is like, yeah, you want to feel healthy and like have energy and feel strong. She's like, and also you want to have a really great mindset. She's like,
yeah.
not one or the other.
Yeah.
So that to me has been huge because I have people like in the last year, like I was definitely a different body type or just slightly different last year, having lived abroad for a little bit. And something
Yeah.
like close friends and my sister especially reflected is they were like, wow, you're way smaller. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like I didn't necessarily notice. And then I
Mhm.
started putting on clothes and when I got back to Canada and I was like, okay, yeah, things are way looser. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, but I was still having some of the similar narratives that like that wasn't necessarily celebrating my body.
Mm,
And I was like, interesting, even though I'm smaller and closer to my ideal weight, these are still happening. And so then I started to get really real with myself then. And now I'm at a body weight that's like heavier than last winter, but I feel the most confident and integrated
mm,
in myself right now.
yeah.
And it's so interesting to like notice. And then I look at photos and I was like, actually, like, I felt really like lanky
Yeah.
in that time period. And I didn't feel as strong or as confident as I do now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the reminder that like body image is not all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah, so true. And I think it could be, I don't want to like stop you from getting into the next question because I know we've got some really good ones, but it's kind of like even the stress around, even like expectations of ourselves. And I think even, well, actually, I'm gonna let you ask the next question because I think it ties really nicely into the next one.
Yeah. So the next one is what do you feel are some of the key stressors impacting weight gain and weight loss for women?
Hmm. I think expectations on ourselves do,
Yeah.
like expectations. And I'll speak for myself and just trends that I see in my clients, but like doers, 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 go, 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 like slam as much as you can in one day. And like you've had a good day when you've knocked off 50 things off your to-do list, right? But also it's like the expectation that you have of yourself in terms of how you show up for yourself and also like expectations of your body. Like that can be a big stressor. So weight loss, for example, like a big thing that I talk about, like at the beginning of the journey, but like a lot during the journey is like reevaluating expectations of yourself. Because if you have an expectation way up here and say you're reality is like down here, like you're not achieving the expectation, well, then there's this big gap, and then you feel like you're behind, you feel like you're not doing enough, you're feeling, less than, you feel like you're always like playing this catch-up game. And then that alone, like, again, it like gets into this internal chatter of like, I'm not doing enough, like I'm not seeing results, I'm not doing this and that and blah blah blah. And then it starts to affect your emotional state, and we get all frazzed and stressed out. So I find a big piece of the work that I do is like helping women really just reevaluate expectations of self, their body, because a lot of my clients have come from backgrounds of like, well, I just go hard for like 90 days and then lose 10 to 20 pounds and then just like not pay attention for 2 months or like 2 years and then do something else full tilt. I'm like, okay, so transforming your lifestyle is very different than doing a 90-day program. Transforming your lifestyle, there is no finish line. So there's not this massive rush to like slam all this stuff in. And it's a really different mindset. It's a really different way of stepping into the journey, because I find that the biggest stressor is like putting all these expectations on ourselves.
100%. Yeah. I'm nodding along because I was like, oh, that used to be me.
Yeah, it used to be me too. Well, still a little bit me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm like a recovering workaholic, all that jazz for sure. Like 0 to 1,000. We're raised in the culture. The more you do, the more you're valued. Like it's
Totally.
going back to self-worth. So, and then especially within diet and weight loss culture, it's like, okay, restriction and like insane workouts because then you're going to get the fastest results. But again, in my experience with dieting and doing that, it's like, yeah, I'd lose 20 pounds in a month and then I'd gain back 20.
Yeah.
And it was just yo-yoing and it was not sustainable or healthy. And then it totally messes up your hormones and everything else. So it's super important to recognize, like what are our expectations? What are our actual goals? Because if the goal is just to like, fit into some like cocktail dress for an event next month, sure, do your like crazy thing if that's all you're going for. But if it's like you actually want to shift your life and feel different and show up different and have a sustainable approach, which is my whole perspective with what I support clients through as well, is it's like baby steps. Because if we do everything at once, after a week, you start to tap out because it's too much for our brain to try to keep up with. It adds, we're excited, but it literally is so much new that it creates stress, even though we're excited about it.
Yeah.
So in order to be like successful and actually stay on course, it's like the reminder, just take it slow, one thing at a time. And I know with my clients, with what I often share, they're like, okay, so I'm meditating, I'm stretching, I'm breathing, I'm journaling. I'm like, let's just stop for a moment.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't have 4 hours every morning to do that. I'm like, no. I was like, what do you think I do every day? They're like, probably that. I'm like, no. I'm like, sit down for like 5 minutes and just breathe. Just see how that feels. And then before you go to bed, take a few minutes, do that again. I was like, let's just start there. I'm like, and if it's 4-6 breathing, if it's box breathing, if it's you laying down, if it's you sitting, I don't care.
Yeah.
But just do that. And then how that goes, then we'll see. Okay, maybe one day you're inspired and you want to add some yoga and you have more time. Beautiful. But it's not that you're needing to do all of that. And like, because it just, because then they're like, well, now I'm stressed out. I'm like, of course you are. And that's the whole point that we're trying to reduce, is like, no. So it's so interesting. And actually I was chatting with my sister. She's been working with someone in the fitness space with different fitness goals she has, and just how changing her day-to-day eating patterns of adding more protein has helped her massively in terms of energy, and then in terms of hitting some of her goals that in the past were really challenging.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting similar in my own life with, I never loved protein, and I've always eaten more chicken, fish, and eggs than any other meat.
Yeah.
And so I've always been in a deficit. And this year, I'm really focusing on, okay, how can I incrementally increase it?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
necessarily like full body weight yet, but like, how am I increasing it? Because it's amazing how different you feel from just making that change. And then that supports having more energy to do the workouts and to actually show up 4 times a week and do the workouts versus running on a calorie deficit where you're already exhausted and then trying to do 5 workouts a week where you're further depleting, creating stress, and actually probably like inhibiting weight loss because your body's storing because it doesn't want you to actually operate in that environment. So I think it's, the baby steps are so key. And do you have anything else to add to that specifically?
Well, yeah, like I was just going to say, it's like the baby steps, like you were saying with your clients and breath work and journaling and all the things. It's the same thing with nutrition fitness. It's the same thing. So instead of, because so many women come to me, they're like, well, I feel like I have to make, all these 5-star, like really healthy meals and, follow this strict meal plan. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's so 1980s. Like we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing that anymore. So like for my standpoint, like my thing around fitness, I'm like, something is better than nothing. Some minutes is better than no minutes. You do not have to go be a gym rat and spend 10 hours of your life in a gym or doing CrossFit every single day. Like you don't have to do that. Don't do that. Mix it up. Inject some movement that you actually enjoy doing, do Pilates, do yoga, do your HIIT, do your running, do your hiking outside. But at the end of the day, some minutes is still better than no minutes. Because again, it's like the expectation. It's like, oh, well, my workout doesn't count if I don't do my half an hour or like 45-minute haul. Says who? You can get a great workout in 17 minutes. That counts. And it's the same thing with nutrition, right? Like we get in our mind and we think like, oh man, like we feel like this big wave of overwhelm and expectation because we feel like we have to make all of these like perfect, healthy meals when we're on this health and weight loss journey. Like there's no such thing as perfect nutrition. And for me, like I'm a dietitian, but I do not get any enjoyment out of cooking. I really don't. I'm not a foodie. I don't get all excited about spending time in the kitchen. I don't. Because I literally want to do anything else with my time than be in the kitchen.
That's amazing.
So
sorry.
No, like it makes me very different because most dietitians are like, oh, I love to cook. I'm like, nah, like not me. I would rather be like doing whatever else that I want to do. So quick and like, I just call it like quick and dirty nutrition. Like, and for a lot of women that work with me, they're like, yeah, like I could be okay with like having a similar breakfast most mornings, maybe like switch up the fruit or whatever, like change up a flavor, but whatever. It's like, you've made a decision. You don't have to think about making a different fancy breakfast every single day. Roll with what works. Because again, it takes the stress out of it and you're not in this decision fatigue mode because you're trying to decide between like 7 different recipes. It's like, stick to the same flipping one. If it works, roll with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it also like really illuminates how much we don't trust ourselves. Like I was reading Glennon Doyle Untamed again. I freaking love her book. It's the best. And it's like so true how quickly we look to other people for their opinion, their guidance, their advice. And it's so common in the space that you and I are in of coaching clients where it's like, look within yourself.
Yeah.
What are you being guided towards? What are you naturally already making and doing? Just do more of that and like add in more veggies or add in more protein. Like that's how I operate. People, like, because people are like, well, what do you eat? What do you do? And I'm like, literally, I eat the same meals every day because I just don't care and it's easy. I'm like, meal prep, perfect.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, keep it simple because otherwise, my brain's like, I do enjoy cooking and I do enjoy baking, but it's also like, I'm not really doing much of it on my own. If it's with a group of friends or if it's for a dinner party, sure. But just to like cook for the sake of cooking, I'm like not so
Yeah.
inclined. I'd rather be outside. I'd rather go swimming or like
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, I hear you. I love that. And I think you just said such a good point too of decision fatigue. And
Mhm.
it's like just like pick the thing and do it. And that's the biggest part is we get so caught up in, and especially in my past experiences of so many different options, so many different
Yeah.
possibilities, so many different workouts, so many. And so then we're just like, okay, so I don't know what to do. And then we just don't do any
Yeah.
because we spent so much time that all of a sudden the time we had to do it is now past. And we're like, well, shoot. And then that probably triggers a spiral of, well, I didn't do that today. And then it's just like, just this
Oh
whole downhill
yeah.
thing. And it's like,
Oh
let's just
yeah.
pick one. So one of my favorite things, which I don't know if you share with clients, I'm just going to guess you probably do, is like the night before, I'll write down, okay, what are like at least 3 things that I'm doing tomorrow? And like
Yeah.
I will write down like every day. Like I know I'm waking up, I'm meditating, I'm going for a walk, and I'm doing some sort of movement practice.
Yeah.
Whether that's 20 minutes or an hour, I don't care, but it's there. And I often have the go-to workouts that I go to, but I know it's written. So when I get up, I know my plan.
Yeah.
When I don't have that, it's a lot more fluid and I let myself off the hook way more.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you have
Yeah.
anything else to add to that?
No, it's yeah, same thing with nutrition. Like a really helpful tip is yeah, writing the night before. It's like what am I going to eat tomorrow?
Right.
Shake a breakfast, whatever, lunch plate, snack thing, lunch, whatever, like Greek yogurt and apple for afternoon snack, and then like chicken and pineapple skewers with sweet potatoes for dinner. Cool, done. So
Right.
it comes back to making a decision ahead of time because it's just one less thing that you got to do during the day. And I think like so for so many women, the stress of like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do for food, right? And then they have a really hard time just deciding. But yeah, making a decision, rolling with it, sticking to the plan rather than the feelings. It's yeah, good point. Good point.
Are there any other stressors that you'd add that you notice impact weight gain or loss for women?
In terms of stressors, I think one of the biggest ones, because I work with a lot of like driven women, and I think the busyness of life, really the
Mhm.
busyness of life is the stressor. And I'll just say that because there's so many things that can pop up within the life umbrella, whether it is kids, family members, like health things, or maybe something happened at work, or whatever it is. Even our schedules can be a big stressor. And I find that a lot of the conversations that I'm having, Edie, are less around like, okay, here's what to eat. It's more so like, okay, let's look at your calendar for the week. Let's strategize and, prioritize some pockets of time here, or also get really intentional about what's on your calendar that's not actually serving you in any way. Why are all of these things on your calendar? And so, I always love it's like, oh, well, and I'm sure you hear this too, but if you ask like, oh, like, how's your weekend? Oh, busy, busy, busy. It's like we wear this busyness badge of honor. It's like, okay, yeah, you were busy, but did you actually enjoy yourself this week?
Yeah.
So the great thing too, I mean, a lot of women that I work with, like entrepreneurs and like consultants, they have control over your schedule. So if you're complaining about how busy and chaotic and everything your schedule is, because I've had to do this with myself, it's like, take a look in the mirror because you are the one making your schedule.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like you don't have
Yeah.
to say yes to everything. You can say no, not this time. And that really comes back to, the mindset. Because again, it's like working through like the people pleasing and, like obligations and boundaries and all that stuff. But that can be a big stressor is the busyness of life, expectations of yourself, and the people pleasing, and just like trying to get it all done, like the juggle of life, and almost seeing your health and nutrition as something extra to do, like something, you know, to layer in. But it's like, okay, is it something extra, or is it something that is the foundation?
Foundation. Yeah.
And you get to decide like what activity or thing that you're doing is pulling away from the time or like chipping away at the foundation that you like really need. So it's
Yeah.
really looking at thinking really reevaluating the busyness and how you're actually using your time. Like, get curious about how much time you're spending on things.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's super, super key. Something that a bunch of friends have started saying, which I really love, is like, I have a full plate or a full schedule.
Yeah, full.
And
Yeah.
so, like, friends will ask me, they'll be like, "So, how was your weekend?" And sometimes I'm like, "Oh, it's super chill. It was awesome." And then, like, this past weekend, I was like, "It was really full, but it was amazing. And I enjoyed every moment of it."
Exactly.
And it's such a distinction. And it's something that I find super fascinating now as well. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but people will often ask me what I'm up to and I share, and then they'll reflect to me, "Wow, you're so busy." And I'm like, "No, like I don't feel that." So it's so
Yeah.
interesting because I'm like, I actually feel the most chill I've ever felt
Yeah.
and the most like in control of everything and like happy with things. But like,
Yeah.
interesting that that's the word you would use as a reflection.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know. I hear it too.
So
Yeah.
fascinating. And there was something else you said that was so good, and now it's totally going from my brain. Oh, emotional eating. Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
a pattern or a trend that you see that's really tripping women up in terms of weight loss or fitness?
Yeah.
Because I know when we're dealing with stress and like just understanding that unfortunately so much of the population is literally living with chronic stress and is
Yeah.
unaware the depth of the daily stress load that we're dealing with, and then also recognizing how if we're thinking a negative thought, it literally triggers I'm being attacked by a bear in our brain, which is literally sending the stress response and cortisol and adrenaline through the body.
Mm.
It's interesting to then notice, like, okay, if a lot of the thoughts are tied to the needing to produce and to perform and that expectation, then do you notice there's a lot of emotional eating as a result based on that whole cycle?
Yeah. 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 So emotional eating is a big one. And I also like to help women become more aware. Like, is it emotional or is it more mindless eating? Like,
Mm,
because there
like
is,
autopilot.
yeah, like autopilot, because there's a difference between, you know, the old 3 o'clock autopilot. It's like, I call it procrastinacking, where you're like, like I got a couple more hours to get through, and like some chocolate almonds would be great, or like whatever. But when you go to the pantry and you're not even thinking about it, I totally autopilot. Like, I was eating ice cream in bed last night. Like, that was autopilot. Like, I wasn't tapped in at all. It wasn't emotional eating. It was mindless eating. So
Right.
there's a difference. So,
Yeah.
you know, the 3 p.m. and like the right after dinner, or like, you know, kids go to bed, house is quiet, and it's so predictable. It's so autopilot, right? It's like your brain is just expecting. It's like, oh, 9 o'clock, great. Sun's down, go sit on the couch in the same spot. You turn on your remote, the TV comes on, and you're like, oh, what do I feel like snacking on? Then you go to the fridge, you like look in the pantry, you try a piece of peanut butter or like a scoop of peanut butter, and you're like, oh, well, that really didn't do it. And then you go for something else. It's just so autopilot. And when you continue that pattern, day after day, week after week, year after year, you know, women say to me, they're like, oh, I'm just like stuck in this rut. Like, I don't even remember what the food tastes like. So that one's less emotional, and it's more this mindless autopilot, like hand to mouth motion and like super distracted eating. So, you know, tackling that, bringing
Yeah.
awareness to that,
Yes.
bringing in the pause, because again, it can really help you make a mindful decision and be like, whoa, like here I'm at the pantry again. Like, am I actually hungry? what am I doing here? So we start to break the
Mm.
pattern.
Mhm.
And then the emotional one, like this one can be more surface level, or they could go pretty deep. So, emotional one can be, well, like some of the most common ones would be the reward eating at the end
Mhm.
of the day, and also feeling like a trend that I see often is like women won't eat all day, and they'll, pretty much go off of fumes all day long, and then they'll crash on the couch. And then the internal dialogue, it's like, oh yeah, like you got through your stressful day, you deserve this, like pat on the back, good for you, using food as comfort, but also using the fact that they haven't eaten through the day as a permission to overdo it. Or not even overdo it, but like, oh well, I skipped lunch today and I didn't have an afternoon snack, so like, yeah, like this works.
Yeah.
I deserve
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
these
It's amazing. It's amazing the stories we tell ourselves to
I
try to like
know.
give ourselves that permission
The
to
green
be
light.
sneaky. Yeah, it's
Yes, the green
interesting.
light. Yeah.
So, actually, building on that, then, what are some of your go-to tools and recommendations to help women with reducing and managing stress to improve self-worth, in addition to cultivating more awareness and tackling the schedule and taking things like one step at a time and writing out your list the day before? Is there anything else that you might add to that, or
Yeah.
just add to the topic right now?
Yeah. Well, I have a shine method, SHINE, and having those daily intentions to shine. It's sleep, hydration, your internal dialogue, nutrition, and exercise.
Oh my
So
God, I love that so much.
yeah, the
That's
5 habits that help
amazing.
you shine. So, using that every day, because it's again brings conscious awareness. So it's like in the morning, okay, yeah, cool. Like shine, sleep, aim for whatever your 7 to 9 hours. Give yourself a check mark, right? Like always give yourself the check mark for this stuff.
Yeah,
And I find it's really helpful just because that's easy to remember, shine. And when you write it down in the morning, it's like, okay, 7 to 9 hours of sleep, hydration, 2 liters of fluid, inner thoughts. I really like journaling. I find it's like whether you want to journal or quiet time, but just some time for you to
yeah,
be still and let your thoughts flow. Write them down because you can see what kind of thoughts are going on in your mind and be like, oh yeah, no wonder I'm feeling
right?
less
Yeah,
than today. Like, look at my internal dialogue. And then you have the
yeah,
opportunity to rewrite.
yeah,
And then nutrition, getting intentional around having 3 meals a day, an afternoon snack, and fitness. So I love the shine method. And with that, the daily movement, and it doesn't have to be this like heavy hitter workout. It's moving your body with intention, because again, it just helps so much with stress response and like everything. Exercise is
yeah,
great for so many
yeah.
things. So yeah, like really, really helpful tools there.
And
Um,
even to something that, like, for me, having like navigated some pretty massive injuries, I know that a
mhm,
lot of people reflected to me, "Oh, are you just watching Netflix and chilling?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. Like, I can't
yeah,
walk or weight bear right now, but I am laying on my bed using bands, doing Pilates exercises
yeah,
because I know I need to have strength in my core and my hips to support me when I start moving again."
yeah,
So it's amazing, even if we feel limited, what is possible in terms of movement, in terms of
mhm,
laying down, sitting, just taking a moment to stand up and stretch. If you're doing
yeah,
your laundry, like squatting as you're doing stuff, when you're brushing your teeth, notice if you're actually engaging your core and your glutes, or if you're totally just out to lunch and leaning on everything. Like, there's
yeah,
so many little things we can do that are integral and foundational, because
yeah,
like our health is wealth. That's what
yeah,
became clear to me when I was working corporate and I had to step away, is I was looking at so much toxicity around me, and I was like, we cannot be so disconnected from this
Yeah.
for something out there. It doesn't work. Like that isn't possible if we're not shining, if we're not
Mm.
integrated, you know?
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. The good old
Um,
shine.
yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And I just want to be mindful of time. So do you have time for one more question?
Yeah. Let's
You
hear
good for
it.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some common misunderstandings around stress and female weight that you'd like to debunk for listeners today if you haven't already spoken to them? Because I know we've covered a lot.
Yeah. I don't know if they would be like debunks, but I think is just recognizing and becoming really aware of your own internal dialogue and like being really conscious about the words that are flying out of your mouth. Because, and the reason why I say this is because if you're constantly hearing yourself saying like, oh, I'm so stressed, or oh, I'm so busy, or I'm never going to lose this weight, or oh my gosh, I have so much, like so many things going on. The words that come out of your mouth are a direct reflection of what you believe to be true in the moment. And watching, yeah, like watching your mouth. Um, and what I find that is really helpful with is because stress, like, another example that's actually coming to me too of what women say all the time, and I'm just like, okay, gotta watch your mouth, is like, I'll focus on me when things settle down. Life is so stressful
Right.
right now. I'll
Yep.
revisit when things settle
Yep.
down. So that's what I mean by watching your mouth, because if that is the language that is coming out of your mouth, then you're allowing the stressors of life to not do anything about your
Yeah.
health, or even it's almost like you're shutting down the opportunity versus getting curious around, okay, well, things are busy in life. Reality is they're probably not going to settle down, but
Yeah.
we have this, like, this is where the inner work comes back to, and kind of goes back to question number one around stress and relationship with stress is life isn't supposed to feel like it's not supposed to feel,
Sunshine and rainbows all the time.
yeah, it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows every time, like every day. And I think capturing your language, and if you think that the best time to invest in your health and your nutrition and your fitness, whatever, if you feel the best time to invest in yourself is when things settle down, like, oh my gosh, girl, you're going to be waiting until the cows come home, because there's never a right time. So it's I think that would be the big like debunker, is that, you know
Now,
now,
do it
do
now.
it now. um and being careful with labels. Being careful with labels, meaning like, oh, I'm so stressed out, my cortisol levels are high, like this is packing on the fat in my midsection, like, oh, I'm going through menopause, or I'm perimenopause, and this is happening in my body. Okay, some things are changing. Yeah. But actually, one of my girlfriends said it really well, because she's in perimenopause. She's like, okay, is this a perimenopause body, or is this a body that isn't actually taking the time to prep healthy food, isn't moving with intention, is allowing her schedule to control her versus her controlling her schedule? Is this actually a body that's going through perimenopause, or is this a body that is bending over backwards for everybody else and literally leaving herself to the very last thing on the list? So I really liked what she said, because she took radical responsibility of like, is this, or like putting the blame, right? Like putting the blame and putting like the label of like, oh, well, I'm just going through perimenopause. Or it's like, yo, is this perimenopause, or is this like the whatever 7 things that you're not actually taking action on? So
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I love a little bit of tough love, because like we got to be able to call ourselves out on stuff, and that takes courage. It really takes courage. but it humbles you. It
Oh,
really
yeah.
does.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really big part is being able to call ourselves out. And through calling ourselves out, we call ourselves up because it
Mm,
helps us up level.
yeah.
And it's not for the faint of heart. That's what I always say to
No.
people. People will be like, "Oh, how did you like navigate so many things you've navigated? And how are you just so chill all the time?" And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it has not been a pretty easy process. Like it's required me to show up again and again and again, and like you just gotta roll up your sleeves and go for it and give yourself grace through the process and
Yeah.
take the baby step. But like every time that we say I'm gonna do it when XYZ happens or my ducks are in a row,
Yeah.
we're doing another disservice to ourselves. At
Yeah.
least that's certainly been my experience, and that's the biggest, I think, hurdle of what I navigate with clients as well, is that
Yeah.
same reflection. And it's like our health doesn't wait, and we
Yeah.
see that now more and more with so many issues of disease and illness on the rise. And it's like that is from not taking the radical responsibility and not taking even the smallest action of prioritizing our needs within our list of things.
Yeah.
And it's just wild. And I think especially as women, because we're just so conditioned to like caregive others. And
Yeah.
so really stepping into our own power and giving that attention back to ourselves is like the
Yeah.
biggest gift we can
Huge.
give.
Huge.
Yeah.
I just wanted to end on one
Yeah.
remark here because I'm thinking of a woman that I've been working with for like a year. And again, like transformation takes time, right? But
Yeah.
she said to me, she's like, she's like, I think the most amazing and powerful aha that has come to me throughout this whole journey is she said, I now rely on fitness, taking like taking care of my nutrition and having that quiet time to journal. She's like, I rely on those to help me better manage and navigate through stress and circumstances. She said, the old me would have been like, oh, well, can't work out today because this random thing popped up at work and I'm stressed. Or, oh, I can't eat healthy tonight because I'm so stressed out. I'm so emotional. Or, oh, can't take care of myself today because this popped up with my boys, whatever, soccer schedule, and now I have to do that. She said, I make it a priority. So she said, now I'm relying on nutrition, like my Shine, like I'm relying on the Shine Foundation, and I am so better, like equipped and able to just like respond to life's curveballs. So I thought that was huge. I'm like, yes, I'm like, that is the ultimate goal because it's
Yeah.
true. Like when
Yeah.
you take care of yourself, like you're the sun of your solar system. So of course everything's going to feel out of control and just like spinning in orbit around you if you don't have yourself covered. But when
Yeah.
you do, everything just like is aligned and it's like
Yeah.
this like cool awesome flow around the shining sun in the middle. So there's my
Yeah.
final word.
I love that. Yeah, and it's incredibly important because that's what gives us that resilience to navigate everything, because we know we have the tools to help
Yeah.
us move through it, again anchored in the pause to respond versus react.
Yeah.
So, I love that.
Bingo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Nice.
love ending it on that note as well. So, just so listeners can find you, what is your Instagram or website or anything you want to share? And I'll add it in the show notes as well.
Yeah. So people can find me on Instagram. My handle's Leah Van Dolder. Yeah, hang out with me. I'm one of those social people on social. I don't have these random platforms and like I'm on there every day. I hit up the DMs, like I talk to people on social. So Instagram, you can check out my website too, leahvandolder.com. And I also have a podcast on Spotify and Apple podcasts. It's called the Reclaim Podcast. So that's where people can find me.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me
And we'll
too.
definitely chat again soon. I have a feeling we will definitely be doing a part two. So, listeners, stay
Definitely.
tuned. And for everyone tuning in, as always, please download, like, comment, share. Feel free to reach out with any questions or feedback. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, and week. Thanks for listening. Bye.